Second start. Warmly welcome to AI Monday Helsinki. It is 15th of January and these shows have been running for, I guess, for 6 years. Today we have a really fascinating topic. It's about fakes, it's about social influencing, it's about how TikTok makes our youngsters to spend hours swiping their fingers. How on earth that happens? What you can trust, what you cannot trust. The picture that you have up here, I made it with Midjourney Sunday, yesterday, and I wrote there, imagine slash social influencing, comma, orange, purple, red, blue, because they are the brand colors from there. And this was one of the first pictures Midjourney made for me. I think it's really, really fascinating. It's like a piece of art. But anyhow, I think we can drop that off because we want to show the agenda. How does this work? Waiting a few seconds to get the program there. Whoa! That picture is also done with AI, generative AI. So, there are 4 speakers, but before that, do we have anybody from Finnish Center of AI here today? Patrick dropped me a note being in the flu. Hope you are fine there back home. If not, I will read a few pages that FKI has produced, and I'm not from FKI. So my name is Petri Malmelin, I'm from Amplify. The companies who are behind of this is Taival, FKI and DAIN Studios, and we have Saara Hyvönen from DAIN Studios talking as the third speaker today. So it's all about AI and social influencing, really exciting topics today. Finnish Center of AI, FKI as they like to pronounce it, it's an organization, a collaboration between Aalto University, University of Helsinki and VTT AI, shall I say, academic persons. And here is a short update what they are. So 70 plus persons dedicated in Finland. They've done more than 2,500 documents, papers, research results on the topic of AI during the past, I believe around 6 years, because when we started AI Mondays, I think FKI was launched around that same time. And they are very active in organizing various events. So upcoming, January 23rd, apparently medical image analysis. Anyone in the room who has specialty or interest into medical image analysis. To me, this is one of the first analytical AI applications back in time. And suggestions from you. Was it so that there is a possibility to chat and ask questions? So those of you online, you can also propose their FKI topics and topics for AI Monday as well. And here are some half a dozen of events that they have organized in the past couple of months. And one thing, if you are close to Otaniemi or what's the campus of Helsinki University? Kumpula, thank you, Tommy. So to my understanding, they are having every second Monday, Kumpula every second Monday in Otaniemi, a specific topic, and you can find also Also those morning coffee seminars from YouTube. But now let's get to the juice of it. I'd like to introduce a friend and co-minded, entrepreneur-minded person, Mikko Alasaarela. And the topic is something which is fascinating and a bit scary at the same time. Mikko, the floor is for yours for the next 20 minutes. And let's do so that let's have all the 4 presentations on the stage, and then we have a common questions and answers, kind of a panel discussion part. Please.
Thank you, Petri. Thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so my name is Mikko Alasaarela, and I've been working with algorithmic influence for past 15 years. The topic is quite fascinating, and it has been evolving quite rapidly also over the years. But the real starting point for this was actually in 2009, when Facebook announced the like button for the content, which enabled them to create personalized feeds for everybody based on their likes. That led into a proliferation of an industry called social gaming. And social gaming was actually the industry that drove the whole current situation in the social in general. Gaming industry has always been a lab for new innovations and ideas. And in this case, what happened was that in 2011, and it was only 2 years after the like button came out, the whole industry flipped from the traditional you buy game and you consume it into free-to-play games that are based on the addiction of the users and then turning that addiction into monetization through virtual goods and these in-app purchases that people are making. And today, was last year, about 85% of the revenue of the whole game industry is coming from these free-to-play games that people are paying for after they get addicted to those games. What that meant was that by 2018, I researched the Google Play Store because they happen to be very helpful about this. They created these keywords from all of the reviews that people made out of those games that they collected with AI to show what kind of games these are based on those keywords. And turns out that in the top 200 grossing games on Google Play in 2018, every one of them had addictive as the #1 keyword with huge margin over anything else out there. If you look at the Supercell's Clash of Clans game, 214,000 reviews with addictive, and then the next biggest is 31,000 reviews, and then so on. Like, it was true for absolutely every one of these games that were on the top 200 list. I could not research it further from the 200 because that was the maximum amount of games I could check. I raised some noise about it in the Silicon Valley circles. I used to live there. And there was an outrage, people saying that how is this even possible that addictive is the only reason why people playing these games. And turns out that Google paid attention to this and they promptly removed these keywords so that people can't see the problem. Nothing has changed since then. But that was the first industry that really flipped into this addiction-based business model. And then all the other industries started shifting towards the same model because it seemed to be the best business model out there in terms of monetization and growth. The music industry shifted. About 2015, the flippening happened in that industry, and today it's about the same as in the game industry, about 85%. And then it went through, like also, of course, Netflix and all the other industries where the consumers are using content. And then it happened with social media itself. So when we started with social networking with Facebook, it was actually double opt-in social networking. You sent a friend request to a friend, and the friend accepted this friend request, and then you are friends, and then you communicate because you are friends. That changed because it introduced a level of friction for the users. Like, I mean, you have to have both people wanting to communicate for this. and they changed into follower model. And this follower model then transformed into different other models like interest-based networking, and then finally today it's all algorithmic. And if you look at this level of algorithmic content on the social networks, the reason why TikTok has won social networking is that it's not a social network. It's simply an algorithm that feeds you the most addictive content you can have. And there's nothing else. The social is not existent in there. So what has happened is that the social media has become anti-social. We started from friends, and you're looking at the friends' post, into you following influencers, and the influencers post, and then people were trying to create content that goes viral, into today's what I call the user-generated TV. So you have content creators that are basically serving the algorithm on the algorithm's creator side, and then you have content consumers that are consuming the algorithm on the other side. Both parties are actually addicted in the same way. The creators are addicted through social approval, like having these likes and views, and then the consumers are addicted through content that serves best their own interest. So what this means is that the whole social media is now shifting to this TikTok model of networking. So Instagram, which used to be the traditional follower model, you followed people and then you see content from these people who you followed. They are shifting towards this algorithmic model of For You. They have about 40 to 50% of the content today recommended by this algorithm, and I expect that fully to be getting closer to TikTok as time goes by, because otherwise they will lose to TikTok. So Instagram is just catching up with the TikTok model of fully algorithmic content provision. Interestingly enough, when Elon Musk bought Twitter and turned it into X, he actually introduced this For You feed for Twitter. And this For You feed is now a majority of the consumption. And people are already confessing that it's addicting them into news. So even though like there's been a lot of controversy on X, and and lots of people have left the platform because of all of these controversies, Elon is also playing this algorithmic game to trying to addict users to these feeds on X. LinkedIn hasn't done it so much. So far they have been simply improving the algorithm a bit, but they are so badly losing currently in the content game, and they are also being flooded by AI-generated content that I fully suspect them to be doing something about it in the coming months, maybe this year, in order to stay relevant. And of course you have TikTok, where the For You page is everything. Like it's basically the reason that the app exists, and the whole situation with TikTok algorithm is that it doesn't matter how many people follow you. It doesn't matter, like none of the social thing that matters. What matters is that you make the most addictive, engaging content on the platform. I fully expect this year to be a restriction year for TikTok, because there's so many calls for curbing it. It's just simply too addictive and then simply too destructive for our youth that we can allow it to exist in its current form. And if you look at the statistics from October, Gallup had a new poll about the social media among teenagers. They found out that teenagers spending a typical day 4.8 hours on social media, out of which they spent about 4.3 hours in TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. So those three apps are completely dominating the attention of our youth. And it's of course because of the short video content that these platforms are offering, and the algorithmic feeds that they offer for this youth. There's a little bit of difference between boys and girls. Like boys are more YouTube fans, and girls are a little bit more TikTok fans. But all in all, it's the short video formats that are currently dominating the attention of our youth. And if you think about it, the short video formats, the typical length of a short video is about 15 seconds, and you watch 15-second videos for 4.8 hours in a row. You see hundreds of videos in rapid succession. That may have an effect on your thinking, how you think, and how your brain is developing. So I think we should be concerned about this as adults. Jonathan Haidt is one of the researchers in this field who is coming up with a book called The Anxious Generation, talking about the harms of the social media for youth. And he identifies 4 foundational harms, which are social deprivation. Think about it, it's called social media, and it's actually anti-social, it's making you less social. Sleep deprivation, because the kids are so addicted that they cannot go to sleep at the reasonable times. Attention fragmentation coming from these short attention spans on the content, and addiction, which is of course the goal of these algorithms. It does have an effect also on learning results. There's starting to be like studies that are now showing the correlation between the decreasing results, school results across the world, and screen time, which is mostly driven by these social media applications. But not only that, we have to also be very, very careful about how these algorithms are shaping the views of our youth. So in case of TikTok, it's not only the algorithm that is creating these different content feeds for the users, but it's also the Chinese CCP who is behind the company ByteDance. They have like thousands of reviewers, content reviewers in China that are looking at the content for the Chinese purposes, but they also route all the like Western content through those same censorship units that are then able to basically insert their own ideas to the content. It's not TikTok itself that is trying to manipulate the users, but they have to be submitting all of the content for the CCP, which is creating this interest in the China to manipulate the Western youth. And this is something that we should be concerned of, and we already have some evidence of these different views of the youth, like shifting towards like nationalist far-right ideologies in the West based on the content proliferation. So you cannot explain it away simply that the youth is wired that way, but the youth is made wired that way through these contents that are out there. And also, not only this, but interestingly enough, in China, the Western TikTok is banned, and they only have the local version called Douyin. And Douyin offers mostly educational content in healthy intervals, which are then, of course, limited, time limited by the government regulation there. Unlike the West, where there's no time limits, and then the kids are spending insane amounts of hours watching these short videos. But they also let these many dangerous challenges to proliferate. And they keep coming. Like every month and year, there's new challenges coming out there, which are downright dangerous. People are dying because they are participating in these challenges of drinking so much water that you basically lose your like ability of handling it in your body. There's like jumping out of speedy boats, and and doing like all kinds of other dangerous things that have led into deaths. This actually happened already in the Facebook times back in early 2010s, but Facebook quickly curbed it and then created limits for this proliferation of this kind of content. So there's always people who are creating this content, but for some reason TikTok hasn't slowed it down in the same way as other platforms have done. And then we add on top of this the algorithmic shaping of our collective consciousness. We have the fact that it's estimated that because of the generative AI, 90% of all content on those media walls will be AI generated by the end of 2025. And that's quite soon, like it's about 2 years. If you think about this as a combination effect, we are in for a ride for the next 2 years. Like it's going to be absolutely crazy. So the question is there any hope? Like what is the actual future here with social networking? Is it going to drive us crazy and drive us apart and break our societies? People are getting more concerned about it. Like the research is now saying that people used to be more hopeful about the positive effects of AI, and now they are being more concerned about it. But me as an entrepreneur, always wanting to look at from the positive angle, I'm also looking at this from the entrepreneurial perspective. Having worked on healthy algorithms for all of these 15 years and talking about these dangers of the social media algorithms, I'm also working on this space on trying to find solutions for this. And what I see is that communities like what you have in WhatsApp, that's the actual real social networking today. Social networking is when you have people communicating with each other, not people being alone watching some endless stream of algorithmic videos. And this social type of engagement has moved from the traditional social media walls now into WhatsApp and other communication apps. So there's multiple new entrants in this market coming up and offering this kind of solutions where you have communities that are based on people talking with each other in an environment where the AI is clearly a servant and not a driver of this equation. So yeah, that was the presentation for today, and thank you.
Thank you, Mikko. Don't go anywhere because you spoke faster than our agenda. We still have, let's say, around 10 minutes. Let's do so that folks on the line, you can type your questions to Mikko and we take them at the end after all 4 presentations are done. But let's take a couple of questions from this room. And Sampo, are you kind and pass the microphone to whoever raises his hand? I have the first question, Mikko.
Okay.
I haven't really studied the PISA results of Finland, but I've seen the headers that Finland, who was number 1, we were proud of that. I think on your 10 pages backwards, yep, your trends looked quite the same. Any thoughts of that?
Basically, the studies that are showing that the classroom use of digital devices is decreasing the study results of the students. The countries that are currently restricting the classroom use of digital devices, which are the most restrictive ones, are Korea and Japan. They are performing the best on PISA results at the same time. Oh. So I think there's a correlation that is currently visible in the large-scale statistics that the case for banning smartphone use during the school days would be a good thing for the students themselves. It doesn't mean that you could not use digital devices for studying in general, like you can use computers for like doing presentations for school. But if you let kids to have their phones with them in the classes, they will be distracted from the class because they have some other content, maybe TikTok running on the phone while the school day is going. So I think I would make that recommendation, and it actually has been done in lots of the top-level schools now that they limit the smartphone use during the school day.
Right. Hand up, there's a question. If you bring the microphone here, please. State your name and then the question, please.
Hey, I'm Philip. First of all, thank you. That was all in all. Well, it's not something that most people here didn't know about, but just getting it all so condensed really paints a pretty bleak picture. And just to turn it a bit darker, these new social networks, WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, they are like one of the key sources of especially, but not only, right-wing disinformation. So I'm kind of worrying if that is actually a way out of the mess that we have in algorithmic social media, or if, on the contrary, moving discourse into closed groups where you can only join if you have an invite link, if you know someone who's already in there, will create more silos, more division, less common ground, because it again keeps people in their bubble and makes them angry about people who are not in the bubble and don't agree about what is being told in a bubble. So that's kind of a point I want to challenge a bit. Is WhatsApp groups, Telegram groups, social interaction really a way out, or just another way to share TikTok videos that fit your pre-formulated view of the world?
Thank you. That's actually an excellent question. So I have run a lot of communities over the years myself, and different sizes. I've run like a huge communities of tens of thousands of people, but also like small groups of maybe like 10 to 50, or maybe sometimes up to 100 people. The current situation that we have in the social media walls is that because the reactions that people leave on those contents have been the driver of the proliferation. So if there's a lot of emotional response to a existing post, that will get more visibility. And this So what happens is that because this like quick emotional response that has been elicited, like it has to happen in 3 seconds because people are scrolling the feed so fast. And then this kind of lizard brain of ours is on the top. That actually creates polarization. I mean, it kind of forces people to polarize the conversation. And because of this polarization, in the group settings, you can actually have constructive conversations with people from different backgrounds if you build it properly. And I've done it. Like I've done it multiple times. I put together people from diverse backgrounds that are completely on the opposite bubbles in the existing social media group. And they actually get to talk because it's a safe space. And they get to talk and they start having more like understanding on the other side. So this kind of small group engagement is actually more human scale communication than the large scale one. And the bigger you go and the more viral you go, the more it's a cesspool. Like it's more like the lowest common denominator, and then you have all the trolls. You also have like the government agents like that are trying to manipulate the conversation towards specific directions, like Russia trying to insert misinformation in all the public conversations in Europe, and so on. So I would say that I'm hopeful that this kind of group conversations can be less how to say bubble-inducing than these kind of polarizing conversations on the wall, because they are not driven by the maximum emotional response in the fastest possible time frame.
Thanks, Mikko. Let's take more questions then at the end. Next on the stage, pardon me asking, doctor?
Yes.
I made mistakes in the last AI Monday calling somebody a doctor who wasn't, but Dr. Aleksi Knuutila, okay. And targeted influencing of generative AI in elections maybe. Stage is yours. Here's the trigger.
Thanks.
20 minutes, please. And
Let's
by the
see.
way, there's a clock down there, so at
Fantastic.
47 I will come up here.
Okay. Hi. So I'm going to speak on the topic of AI and elections, and my talk it sort of has 2 parts. So I'll start with talking about my research on algorithmic publicity, so quite close to what Mikko was just talking about what kind of political messages get amplified on social media. And I'll also talk about generative AI, these kind of AI-generated images or audio, and what effect that might have on elections. And the latter part is a bit more kind of based on examples and speculation. So a little bit about me. So I'm a senior researcher in the sociology department that's close to here. And a lot of my previous work is kind of on political communication and sort of trying to open the black box of how online platforms influence political campaigns and public opinion. I'm also very interested in how generative AI can become part of scientific methods. So the little GIF in this image is from a project where I was looking at the kind of visual features associated with inequality in London through a kind of model that generates images. If you're interested, you can go to Knuutila.net to see some of my work. So 2024, there's obviously, you'll know that in Finland, there's the presidential election, also the EU elections. In the same year, the US and the UK and India, many of the kind of biggest democracies are having elections. So it's a bit of a kind of mega year for democracies. And there's been a lot of debates also on what exactly, what kind of influence AI and new media technologies are going to have on these elections. And when I was making this presentation, I was kind of trying to survey what are all of the different ways that AI are part of the media environment and shaping elections. And this is probably not even an exhaustive list, and it obviously depends a bit on how you define AI as well. But we're quite used to these complicated models choosing the advertisements we're seeing and personalizing them to us. When we're going on social media, there's a complicated AI model choosing what to show us, working in the background. Mikko gave like a nice history of that. Some of the more darker phenomena are, there might be the kind of automated attempts of using bots to influence public conversations. And the past couple of years, of course, there's been a big jump in the quality of media that is generated with AI models, and that might kind of boost attempts for misinformation as well. So just to give you a kind of a picture, kind of an analogy, how to think about more of the kind of the algorithmic timelines. So you could think of them as a kind of distorting mirror. So in some ways, social media reflects political campaigns, public discussions, but it also distorts it. It makes some things look kind of out of proportion. That in that way, it shapes the kind of communication that is being done, but also which messages find the biggest audience online. At the same time, this is a bit of a disclaimer that it's not all kind of deterministic, that it's still the case that legacy media like newspapers and broadcasters, they determine a lot of the agenda of discussions that happen on social media. So in some ways, social media also depends on these older forms of media. And algorithms also, you could think they're in a kind of complicated feedback loop with their users and don't necessarily kind of determine the media flows. But I'm going to start a description for my own work by talking about some research that I did in 2019. So this was the second to last parliamentary election in Finland. And my work with some colleagues, it kind of started from this observation. What you see in the diagram here are the blue bars are the number of followers that different parties and candidate pages on Facebook have. And the red bars are how many shares their posts get. So this is an aggregation of like hundreds of Facebook pages. And the thing that sticks out is, of course, the Finns, the perussuomalaiset, the kind of right-wing populist party, they get a much greater amount of shares than you would expect if the social media would function in this kind of follower model. And how do you explain this? So one bit of background to it is that Facebook changed the way its timeline algorithm worked around 2017. So it introduced, in addition to the like button, you can also use these emojis to register kind of emotional reactions. And the emotional reactions initially got a 5 times more important weight in promoting the post than just clicking on like. So the kind of emotional reactions were, posts that get the emotional reactions were amplified. And we also looked at what kind of emotional reactions political parties get. So here you have the 6 largest political parties and the share of every emotional reaction. And the thing that stands out is that the Finns and also the Left Alliance, Vasemmistoliitto, they have a significantly higher share of this angry emoji that their messages get. And this is not incidental, especially for the Finns. It was sort of part of their communication as well. So this is a GIF from one of their election videos where there's this troll that emerges from the anger that the people are feeling, and he kind of avenges to a corrupt politician. And so, and we statistically looked at this as well. So the posts that got the highest amount of shares were also most likely to have this anger reaction. And it's kind of hard to prove this completely, but the explanation might be that this kind of content that makes you angry gives you this kind of activating emotion, and you're then more likely to go and click that emoji button on the post and click the share button as well. So an algorithm that emphasizes this emotional reaction when it's choosing what posts to show to other people also unintentionally elevates these angry posts. And it happens to fit the campaigning style of certain kinds of parties, like in the case of Finland, the Finns. And I just wanted to mention like ideas of alternative algorithms. Researchers such as myself, I think we're often quite focused on just criticizing the existing platforms, but I think it's important to think of like what might another kind of platform look like as well. And there's this idea of the bridging system that would, instead of optimizing for the getting the largest amount of engagements, it could promote content that actually gets engagement from a diverse set of user groups. And briefly about some work that's ongoing in 2024 elections. So I'm working together with Faktabari, this Finnish organization, on a project where we try to get a kind of bigger picture of what kind of content is recommended on political topics in the elections this year. And for this work, we're not trusting the kind of official APIs of the social media companies, but rather we're distributing these little computers that people can place in their homes, and they check what kind of content comes up on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and what kind of recommendations search engines give as well. Incidentally, we're still looking for volunteers to host these little computers, particularly in Eastern Finland. So if you happen to know somebody there, or you have a house there or something, then send me a message afterwards. And here's a kind of preview of results. So one thing we do is we search on YouTube with hundreds of different political keywords, and then we look at what kind of videos are recommended when you click on the videos and the search results. And there seems to be, there's a group of around 500 different YouTube posts that come up again and again in the recommendations. And it does seem to be, I mentioned 500 videos, but this diagram is based on just the top 200. And it seems like Halla is dominating the recommendations. So he's the politician that's most commonly referenced in the videos. And so now I'm going to jump into briefly talking about generative AI. And this is a diagram from the World Economic Forum's kind of risk report, where they had a set of experts that they asked, what do you think is going to be the most dangerous thing in 2024? And the second most frequent answer was AI-generated misinformation. And I was quite surprised by this, and I'm somewhat skeptical of the kind of expert opinion, and maybe more worried about economic problems and wars and so forth. And I'll explain why. So I think when it comes to generative AI and elections, the fear is centered around something like this. So last year in Slovakian elections, there was a deepfake audio clip, like with this Liberal Party politician talking about wanting to manipulate the elections. And this was kind of released last minute in the elections and kind of went viral. And of course, the Liberal Party ended up losing in Slovakia. So this is what kind of phenomenon that in America they would call like the October surprise, the kind of last-minute news event that might have enough kind of power to shape election results. Having said that, I think the media sort of did its job, even in Slovakia, and this was quite quickly debunked and questioned as well. So it's a little bit unclear. It's impossible to say like how much of an impact it had in the end. But I just wanted to show you like a range of different examples of kind of related to generative AI, to at least say that like I think its effects are possibly like quite complex. And one of the examples are the use of generative AI to create something like memes. So the New York Times ran this article where they said that the Argentinian elections just a couple of months back, they were the first AI elections ever. But what happened there, it wasn't so much kind of deception through deep fakes, but it was videos like this where you can see Javier Milei, the winning candidate, put into the role of the Joker, or another image where he's like a pirate. These are all released by the opponent of Javier Milei, this person called Massa. And you can see what's happening here is it's almost like a kind of expanding of the kind of expressive capacity. Like we often talk about memes as this kind of form of communication that's a little bit like punk. It's like this where everybody is empowered to do something interesting. Like everybody can create a meme, and in a way, generative AI has something like a kind of an effect like that. And here's some other news stories. So the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, did these robocalls. Apparently they're quite a common form of campaigning where you just cold call people and play an audio clip. But he did it in this way where his voice was actually speaking lots of different languages. And this previous president of Pakistan, Imran Khan, who's imprisoned, created a kind of AI duplicate of himself and ran a kind of virtual rally based on that. So what's happening is that the kind of voices and appearances of people are taken into these kind of assets that are independent of them, and they kind of are used to extend their persona. And Ron DeSantis apparently hooked up an a large language model into a text messaging system and started to send people text messages and kind of offering to saying that you can ask me questions about Ron DeSantis. And I think it backfired and he got quite a lot of bad publicity out of it because nobody really wants a text message from ChatGPT in a way. But you could imagine that there's some kind of opportunities for doing this kind of canvassing, kind of interaction with voters using these new AI models. But in many places, it might still be easier to just pay for cheap labor instead of doing automation. So there's a really interesting work by an anthropologist called Rasidi, who followed in Indonesia these people who are hired to manipulate public opinion. They're kind of a troll farm where they go and participate in public conversations and so forth. And he found that it's the buzzers, as they're called. The buzzers are these people who are the kind of hired guns for these campaigns. They didn't find so much use for generative AI. It was easier for them to do things manually. The only exception for that was that they were trying to manipulate Wikipedia, and if they use ChatGPT to write English, then they can get past the editorial control. So I think, in general, I think one kind of unintentional effect of these new technologies is that they can make people doubt even the authenticity of real media. So they create a kind of generalized doubt about whether people can kind of believe what they see. And there's another example from a kind of Argentinian, from Argentinian politics, where a kind of party representative was caught offering a job for sex or something scandalous like this, and there was an audio recording that surfaced of that, and his defense was, oh, this is a deep fake, this isn't real. So it's something like a kind of deep fake defense that was available to him. And in the end, I would just like to point you, there's a great article by Felix Simon and kind of co-authors where they go through the literature about the fears of generative AI, and they are skeptical about whether it's going to lead to a kind of new wave of election troubles in elections and so forth. And in a nutshell, they say it's partly because there's already so much misinformation out there that if it becomes cheaper to produce more of it, it might not make much of a difference. And the kind of increased quality or increased realism of the media might not really be the thing that makes it more persuasive. There's also this phenomenon of cheap fakes. So you can alter the meaning of videos, for instance, just by editing and splicing them together in a different way. But that was all from me, so thank you, and I look forward to questions now or later.
Thank you, Aleksi, for being promptly on time. Let's take the questions then at the end.
Great.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Our next person on the stage will be Dr. Saara Hyvönen, I checked from LinkedIn, and a co-founder of DAIN Studios. So welcome.
Thank you.
There we go.
Here we go. Okay, I will be... Oops, what happened to my slides? It's black. I see it here, but this screen. Okay, but well, while you wait for the title slide, I will be talking about implementing responsible AI. So the why and the what and the how. And actually, as we will see in a moment, if we get our kind of slides up and running, the why part has largely been discussed in the previous we're scrolling through all of the slides so far. Okay, here we are. Is this the one? We still have a black screen. Monday. I must have had the wrong kind of a magic touch this time. Okay, here we go. Okay, so starting again. Who am I? I always get to this introduction part. So I'm Saara, I'm from DAIN Studios, one of the co-founders. Also, I've been working as a professor of practice at Jyväskylä, have a PhD in mathematics, and have been working on this field for a long time. DAIN is a data and AI consultancy. We work in Finland and Germany for the past, I think it's 8 years soon. And we work across a broad range of industries, broad range of clients. And in this context, of course, then we also touch, whenever you talk about AI, then you end up at some point talking also about responsible AI. And as I already kind of started, a lot of the why we talk about responsible AI was already kind of introduced in these earlier kind of by the earlier talkers. So we already talked about this being an election year, a lot of influencing going on around, and also AI-involved influencing. And we had lots of great examples already on how AI is kind of impacted, but I wanted to go back a bit and also remind of a older case. The previous rounds, let's say 5-6 years ago, AI and elections, there was a big case around Cambridge Analytica. So what happened is that they got a really brilliant idea on how to influence elections. So there was this app where you could answer, a personality test, what kind of person you are. Initially, they kind of even paid for the use, but this created enough interest that there were lots of people kind of then giving this information voluntarily. Of course, they didn't know exactly what it was being used for, but what ended up being the situation that they sharing the information about what their personality is, about what their friends are, what they like, and so forth, you could actually end up building a pretty comprehensive profile of who you are, and then, of course, also using this in kind of political advertising. Of course, not something that is completely kind of by the book, and certainly you wouldn't want to see it happening. We had lots of really great examples also of things that can happen in this this election, social media kind of influencing. But when we talk about responsible AI, we don't only talk about this topic, but we also talk about lots of other ways that AI in some way can go a bit differently than you were expecting. So you have a kind of AI meal planner which starts giving you recipes for chlorine gas as a refreshing non-alcoholic drink. Or US lawyers being really kind of early adapters and using ChatGPT for kind of making court decisions, which is kind of brilliant, except that check the citations because they didn't exist in this case. And then, of course, then very, very concrete cases where a kind of robot mistakes a worker for a box and then crushes him. You don't want AI to go wrong in these ways, but how can you prevent this? So this overall kind of use of AI is one of the whys that we talk about responsible AI. The other is kind of new AI technologies, in particular generative AI. So when we talk about generative AI, we talk about AI that can create text, images, and of course then videos, whatnot, as output. And you can use it for many things. We had some examples here by Aleksi, but you can kind of use generative AI for searching information, for summarizing information, for presentations, for generating new content, for chatting and interacting. And lots of really, really kind of powerful and interesting applications. It has been kind of estimated that this could even lead to an increase of global GDP by 7% in the next decades, which is quite a big change. Of course, this also then raises concerns. I think we saw Pew statistics where people were going from being excited to being concerned about the applications. And the progress is quite stunning. This is now from February 22 to May 23, and you see the progress from haha, that doesn't really look very real to quite realistic. And this, of course, has now we've already had almost a year time to even improve on this. So this you can really see how these kind of methods are taking giant leaps. Using generative AI, however, has its risks, and of course this is one of the drivers then talking about AI, responsible AI. So kind of generative AI can hallucinate facts. So it kind of generates content, but it doesn't need to be kind of actual facts. It might kind of generate inaccuracies, falsehoods, so you need the citations there. There's a lot of discussion around infringement, copyrights. So how can we ensure that generative AI kind of doesn't learn too much so as to produce more or less identical content? It might generate unintended biases. So learning from existing data might mirror existing biases which are in the data. It might have the unexpected behaviors. So you're thinking of doing something, and then in the end the algorithm does something slightly different, or it has some impact that you weren't kind of anticipating when you were kind of planning. And then of course you have the planned bad actors. So using Gen AI tools to generate deepfake, personalized phishing emails as well. You used to be able to say that, you know, haha, they will never learn Finnish, so I can always tell the phishing mails apart, but that's no longer true, really. A third driver of the responsible AI discussion is the upcoming AI Act. And of course, this is in response to all the kind of applications that we have for AI and all the kind of risks we have already identified. And now, not going into too much detail, but the AI Act essentially kind of takes this risk-based approach. So kind of essentially classifies some applications as forbidden, don't go there, some as high risk, where we have a kind of then list of things to take care of, and then there's this low risk and minimal risk areas as well. And this is something that has been in kind of work for quite a long time now, and encompasses a fairly broad definition of AI, covers lots of different roles in the AI. Now in the fairly last minutes also kind of includes the foundational models. The original versions weren't really kind of there, but a lot has happened during the past year. And in December, a kind of agreement was reached, and the next steps are now more or less than the final text needs to be formally adopted, and then we have a transition period. The current estimate is that it will be applied from probably to 2026 onwards, but still lots of questions open there. So there are lots of reasons to kind of talk about responsible AI, but what are we really talking about? We will be talking about 6 different building blocks of responsible AI. So about accountability, about transparency, about fairness, about reliability, about safety, and about privacy. And we will just shortly touch on all of these boxes. So first of all, accountability. What we mean by this is that each AI system that we use needs to have a system owner who is then responsible or accountable for ensuring that the AI is developed, deployed, and monitored in a responsible way. But of course, it's never only one person, but everybody kind of involved should feel accountable for their part. So on the one hand, the business owner is accountable for being able to explain what the intended use are. The developer has to be able to kind of feel accountable for explaining how the algorithm was trained and designed and so forth. And then the end user also needs to be understand what can and what cannot be done. So there's a named user, impact is assessed in a systematic way, and there is a human somewhere in the loop keeping an eye on the algorithm. So the second, and I think one of the really key things is transparency. So what this means is that there is clear communication about the intended uses, capabilities, and limitations of the AI system. How has it been developed? What is it used for? And really kind of finding ways not just to tick the box, but make the end user understand what is going on, what the limitations are. Also, of course, just the plain fact that now you're interacting with an AI rather than a human on the other side. And then, of course, we all want any AI algorithm out there to be fair. And this is a really tricky point because there's no unique definition of fairness. So the kind of illustration on the right has 3 different criteria for fairness. One is same success rate for different groups. Sounds fair. One, the equal odds is the same proportion of true and false positives. Also sounds fair. Sufficiency, same predictive power for all groups. Also sounds fair. But these cannot all hold at the same time. So you need to choose what fair means in this context, and then come up with the right metric for measuring fairness as well. Then one of the responsible AI things is the reliability and robustness. So not making sure that the algorithm not only works in a specific designed situation, but is also robust to perturbations. And a very known example is the illustration here, where by adding a little bit of noise to a panda, you get an image where the algorithm confidently says that it's a gibbon. For a human, you don't actually see a difference. For an AI, a little bit of perturbation makes a difference. And of course, this is just a funny example, but if you replace this by a traffic sign and then have the self-driving vehicle looking at it, of course, then it's a completely different story then. Then overall, the safety and security. So how do you make sure that there are effective controls to protect the system from threats and avoiding harm for impacted users? And this whole kind of safety and security topic, of course, is one of the key cornerstones of responsible AI. So really assessing, documenting, and monitoring issues, and defining predictable failures, and making sure that we understand when these can happen and how to mitigate. And then the whole privacy topic. There are lots of ways when you're collecting and mashing a lot of data that data can leak, and you can reveal things that you didn't want to reveal to the audiences. And keeping an eye on this and making sure that the personal data stays safe, and you keep the kind of privacy of the data subject, so each one of us in order. That's a really kind of important part in this whole responsible AI topic. But how do we then go around and ensuring all of this? And this is going to be a really, really short how part here. So, of course, when we talk about responsible AI, then we talk about lots of different layers of things we need to do. So starting from a very top down, we need some defining principles for data and AI ethics. And now, regardless of whether you're a company or organization, these need to fit what you're looking in, what you're doing in that context. Then, of course, you need to transform those principles into practical guidelines. Just having principles don't help if they don't kind of impact everyday work. And then putting really those practical guidelines in action, so integrating them into development processes, whatever you're doing, making sure that they really kind of influence everything that is happening. And then, of course, then you have lots of really technical nitty-gritty details that you can go into. So talking about coming from the top, so talking about the ethical principles, how do you come around there to having them? So of course there's a lot of things that influence here. So when we kind of work with companies doing this, then we look at the company vision, mission, and values. We talk about industry-specific regulations. We talk about kind of domain-specific regulations like the GDPR, the AI Act. We talk about really kind of practical things around kind of what are the things that happen in that company. And everything of this needs to inform the principles. And of course, then you can have all kinds of tools for this. So if you're interested in more, we have on our webpage is this AI canvas, which you can use to come up with your own set of principles. Has a Q&A there on what you need to think about. Then, of course, then this needs to transform into practical guidelines, be it from kind of things like data governance, AI solutions in daily work, whatever AI solutions you might be developing, guidelines for marketing, for product development, whatever is central in your kind of organization. Those are the things that need to then first be influenced. Information and communication, so making sure the transparency, that you're doing these, but you also talk about it. And then, of course, when we start talking about then really putting these into practice, then you have all kinds of development checklist, data profiling, model explanations, model fairness monitoring, and so forth. So you have lots of then really nitty-gritty details when you start talking about this. So it's not only about principles, but it's really about practical work as well. But what is the single most important thing in the responsible AI? It's the responsible people. So you need to have the people in place who are really kind of thinking of using AI also from this angle. Thank you.
Thank you, Saara, for being on time, even though there was a 2-minute hassle in the beginning. Let's take your questions at the end as well. Fourth person, Dr. Essi Pöyry, a senior researcher. Welcome on the board.
Thank you.
There we go.
Yes. There we go. Hey, everybody. Thank you for the invite, and great to see so many of you here. And I've been admiring your ability to focus. Clearly, so few phones in your hands. I'm really impressed. We're also doing like a little bit of closing the circle by coming back to the topics that Mikko especially mentioned in the beginning, but obviously touches upon some of the things that also Aleksi and Saara mentioned. I'm, as said, senior researcher at University of Helsinki at a place called Center for Consumer Society Research. I also hold a title of docent in marketing. So as by training, I'm a marketing researcher with a focus on especially on how consumers or customers are persuaded and targeted, especially in online environments. Here are some of my publications and things that I've commented in the media. And today, the topic is especially on or about social media influencers, or as we have now come to know them as content creators. Why I think this is or I think everybody agrees with this, why it's important and crucial to study what happens in social media is because we just spent so much time there. Here, this is a few years old stats, but still, I think we actually go only, the way is only up. But here we can see that people spend nearly 5 hours per day at their screens. They could be obviously smartphones or computers or TVs. But when we look at how the time spent is allocated to the different times of the day, we see that especially the later hours of the day are dominated. So it might give us a hint that it's not necessarily work or study related, but more free time related. Especially what's notable is the time used at screens by young people. So 346 minutes, which equals to 5 hours and 46 minutes. So quite a notable time decided to use on this. I've been involved in various studies that have studied how people use social media and for what purposes. This is one a study that has been, or a survey that has been conducted for several years. And in each year, the sample of that survey has been a little over 1,000 people, and this sample roughly represents the population in Finland. And as we see in the chart is that the social media usage it's pretty fascinating that it's able to still grow. And what I would pay attention to is the sharp increase in the usage of TikTok and the decline in usage of blogs. And I will come back to this of the implication of this development. So in that survey, we have also asked people whether they follow these so-called social media influencers and on which platform they do so. So roughly about 60 to 70% of social media users say that they follow social media influencers or people that they do not personally know. And Instagram is the most popular place to do so. And I think it's pretty natural because Instagram is sort of the place where the whole influencer marketing game started. So that's sort of the origin of that whole field. But as we can see, YouTube is very popular too, and TikTok is rising among young people, but not really still at the level of Instagram. Blogs, so the whole influencer marketing game really started with bloggers, but blogs aren't the thing anymore. So when we think about the fields where social media influencers have an influence or have an effect on people, I think there are two notable ones come to my mind, and also those are the fields that I've actively studied, social media influencers. So one is lifestyle topics, and the other is political and social views that people hold. So when we look at the cultural lifestyle topics, influencer marketing is obviously a big thing and something that is very prevalent on social media. And it does not really mean only the so-called ads, or in Finnish kaupallinen yhteistyö, which I don't like. I like the word advertisement because people know what it means. But there are so many other ways that these influencers have been involved in terms of commercial influencing. The other field that I find interesting is political influencing. And we have done some research on how social media influencers were active, for example, in the previous parliamentary election in Finland. And we found various ways of how these individuals had or tried to persuade their audience. So one way of influencing would be just being active in general social discussion topics and share information about the society. The other one would be them to act as engines or catalyst of civic action, for example, by collecting names or getting people to get active with different, for example, new legislation suggestions and so forth. And finally, we have seen that social media influencers have become electoral candidates and even voted as members of parliament, as we've seen, or as supporters of candidates. Typically, when you talk about social media influencers in the public, people somehow have this assumption of the followers being maybe a little naive, or they don't know what they're doing, and maybe they are not that active in the civic society. But actually, according to one of the surveys that I mentioned, we found that people who follow social media influencers are also more likely to vote, which is quite surprising. But one of my sort of hypothesis is that social media influencers have actually become sort of part of the modern media landscape. So they are, if you are interested in what happens in the world, it's normal for a person, even regardless of their age, to also follow social media influencers. So they also most likely read news and follow current topics, but they also follow these influencers. So what makes them, what has, historically speaking, what has made these individuals, these social media influencers influential? So first, people spend a lot of time with their content, as we've noticed. Ads and different kinds of endorsements, for example, endorsements for voting, are actually pretty, quite much accepted and even expected. And because historically their following has been, or it depends on an explicit decision to follow a person that makes their followers pretty engaged, and also as a group pretty similar in kind. So therefore targeting of different kinds of messages is easy and they are influential. And therefore there are a couple of theories that have been popular in using to explain that influence, and one is parasocial relationship that people form with influencers, and the other one is their ability to evaluate their source credibility. But now, going back to Mikko's previous talk about the algorithmic social media, or the birth of the algorithmic social media. So, already for a long time, the creation of social media feeds has been based on recommendation systems where depending on, for example, user preferences or behaviors, other people's or other users' similar preferences, or for example, depending on context, the feed has been curated. So it's not just based on what has been posted, but also what the system recommends for the user. However, now with algorithmic deep learning approaches, the feed is more and more based on content creators that the user does not necessarily previously know. And this creates a change in how people connect with content creators. So because we now have this need for an endless stream of content, it's not sufficient that we only, from the system's perspective, that we follow only the influencers or people that we decide to follow. There is need for additional content, right? So therefore, for example, on TikTok and Instagram, also the default opening page is the For You page and not the following page. So my hypothesis, and I think this could be taken as a fact also, there is more content from accounts that we have not seen before. So the question is, what does this mean from the societal perspective? As a recap, I would say that the development of social media use has come from following your friends and family to following social media influencers. And now, to this day, what it means is that we follow content creators recommended by the system. So this means that there is decreased exposure for single individuals and increased exposure to different number of different individuals. So we have a harder time to assess the background of those content creators. We don't know who they are, we don't know where they come from, we don't know what their intentions are. So therefore there are, I would say, at least two interesting consequences or implications. So one is that we need to understand how people connect to whatever kinds of content. Because previously we have been thinking or assuming that it is the persona of the influencer that makes us influenced, right? So now that we don't know these individuals, I argue that it is the content genre, style, and format that makes us to connect to whatever content. So it might be familiar types of memes, challenges, dances, comedy, whatever it is. So therefore, we will see to an increasing degree that popular content is being imitated and converged so that audience might feel familiar with it. The other important consequence that we also have witnessed in the short video format is that the connection needs to happen immediately. So before, for example, when you were following bloggers, you were willing to read long blog posts about an individual person's life. Now the connection needs to happen within seconds. So that obviously has implications of what kind of information we're able to understand and what we are willing to consume. I'm really happy, I don't know how much time I used, but I'm really happy to answer any questions, and here are some of my current research projects that I'm involved with. Thank you.
Thank you, Essi. Please take a seat, and Saara, Aleksi, Mikko, please also join the stage. Let's see, do we have some closing page here? Yes. Wow. Let's take first 2 questions from online, and then we'll take a few questions from the room. So in no particular order, I think the first question goes to Mikko.
Let's go.
Do you see if this concerning situation will improve, short-term or long-term wise? And if so, what could be the enablers?
Yeah, so there's a discussion, of course, in the circles of people who are analyzing the situation, how it's evolving currently. And the discussion is that we need to move towards more human-scale networking. So the idea of creating a global town hall where everybody's discussing about the same topic is just not working out. It turns out that, you know, if you make it this kind of global scale, it always eventually becomes some kind of cesspool of low-quality conversation or manipulative conversation. So I think the fragmentation of the conversation into smaller like groups is probably going to happen in some level, because people just will eventually start finding that the most rewarding social connections happen with people that they actually know, instead of maybe some fake AI influencers or whatever they are, like who they don't know. So that's. I mean, I'm talking about social networking because I also see that the social media is splitting into social and media, and the media is winning currently. So the media of user-generated content that is algorithmically recommended is taking over the existing mainstream media landscape. X is trying to be a replacement for news, and TikTok is trying to be a replacement for TV, and so on.
Thanks, Mikko. The next from line goes to Saara. How do you see the AI innovation ecosystem and players are moving towards the responsible AI?
Very good question. I think this is something that is probably still mostly in its early steps. So there's a big discrepancy between some, maybe due to the kind of certain fields there might be regulation. For example, in AI in the medical field is already very regulated, and there of course the whole discussion of talking about responsible AI, well, the frameworks are pretty much in place, and there's at least a very kind of mature situation in the sense that of having the discussion of AI, risk-based AI overall, but in many other cases, then this is still a bit. We're still having the question of, well, what does it mean for us? So I think people are becoming aware and are interested and want to kind of make sure that AI is done in a responsible way. We have lots of examples where kind of things go a bit wrong, and people want to avoid that, but exactly what the steps are, I think there's a lot of things that can be done and should be done, but in many cases we're still kind of taking those first steps.
Very good. Let's take a question or two from the room, and I still have more questions here. Anybody from the room? Please, take the microphone.
Hello, my name is Valeria Gasik. I'm a Finnish-Ukrainian business designer. And for very obvious reasons, I'm interested in Russia's influence. Can you give us any examples how they might use AI to influence us in Finland? We already know that Medvedev is using Midjourney, but any other examples?
Who wants to start? Mikko is smiling there. Or is that a smile? I don't know, but please.
Yeah, so if you look at what happened with the Cambridge Analytica in the US in 2016, there was also Russian interference at that time. What they did was that they created these like groups. This is one of the strategies. They created groups where they collected people of specific interest areas into groups with the idea that we are being somewhat how do I say, like mistreated by the society for whatever reason. It could be, for example, Christian gays. So the idea is that you are gay and then you're Christian and the church may be prosecuting, and maybe there's some other reasons. And then they inserted into these conversations where these groups like grew pretty fast because they found like really nice these niches where they targeted, and then they inserted in the middle of the other discussions and conversations, they inserted not necessarily information that Trump is the best candidate, but they inserted information that Hillary is a bad candidate. And and so I think this kind of manipulation where you create this kind of group cohesion, and then the group cohesion is being exploited against the group. And you can actually see that in, for example, the anti-vaccine group in Finland, like has sometimes like pro-Russian misinformation proliferating at the same time. So you find these niches that are somehow feeling like they are not being listened to by the society, and then you feed them with mix into this other information, the information. So I think that's a pretty obvious pattern that we have seen already since 2016, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to continue into this day.
Aleksi, Saara, Essi, anything to add?
I don't have very much to add. I feel like when I speak with journalists about the elections, I very often come across this question, like they want to talk about kind of foreign influence, and in particular kind of Russian manipulation of Finnish elections. But to be honest, I feel like I have come across very little actual evidence of it happening in Finland. Apart from like some kind of sporadic Twitter accounts where it's difficult to see who's behind it, and it certainly hasn't been very influential. But this, I think, is in contrast to, like, you can look at some Baltic elections where these kind of troll farms seem to be much more active. But maybe the Russians see Finnish elections, Finnish government as a kind of lost cause at this point. But I wonder if you have different impression.
I don't have any good examples, but in terms of content creators, I would say that something that X or Twitter has shown us is that there are these short videos where they use actors, and obviously you could use generative AI to create these scandalous or somehow weird or obnoxious videos that seem at first really real. And then I would say that it's good that X has, for example, shown us that might be the case, that they aren't real people, but actors. But for example, on TikTok, I have not seen similar disclaimers where they would have exposed such videos. So I would say that there is room for influencing and manipulation, but I don't know. This is just speculation.
Just a quick comment from me as well. YouTube, which I guess I'm addicted because of their great algorithms, there is really fascinating video called A.I. so AI Dilemma. And actually there's a few of them because these two American guys are keeping the presentation every couple of months. So AI Dilemma is a fascinating and fantastic story where we are. One of the statements there is that after 2024, after this year, it would be pretty impossible to win a big election without AI. That's a harsh statement. And kind of that leads to me think that whoever has the biggest resources, most money, most trolls in their farm, has a big power of influencing those persons who are unsure where, which side to take. So, I don't know, scary times ahead, or different times ahead at least. So I really recommend to go to YouTube and check this AI Dilemma. It's a 70-minute video. Take the latest version they have there. Next question, please.
Actually, going like off script here, I would almost speculate in the opposite direction, that being able to not use AI, to use real actors, to use real copywriters to produce really high quality content will be what actually financially well-suited candidates will be able to do, and that refraining to generative AI will be the, let's say, low-budget alternative if you can't afford to go for an actual production. I believe that will be also true for just normal brand advertising. But of course, without AI, as in algorithmic targeting, no election has been won for a long, long time. So this statement is true almost in a trivial matter, I would say. But what I actually wanted to ask is, I found an interesting thing in this influencer presentation, which is the surprising rise of Snapchat. Snapchat, for me as an old person, was this platform that died a long time ago because being able to send self-destructing nudes is not a USP in the long run. And now, especially with young people, it's back. And it's exactly the kind of platform Mikko mentioned, which is not algorithmically curated, but it's actually about, it's an instant messenger, more or less. It's closer to, for the old people, ICQ than it is to Instagram or even TikTok. So is that a glimmer of hope?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. Snapchat as a technology is a definitely healthier way of communicating with the youth. And they actually started from this healthier communication of sending pictures like that expire so that you don't feel like this anxiety of creating perfect version of yourself. But unfortunately, it's also the biggest platform with groomers and pedophiles. So these scum of people that I can't just like say anything good about, happen to find out that it's the easiest place to approach kids like via chat in a way that they trust you. And it's a big problem currently, like that they're trying to figure out like how to deal with. So unfortunately, our kids are not safe anywhere because the badness also evolves in this. But I do agree that. Yeah.
So my question is, why is Snapchat back? So I see everything you just said, but that is because kids are on Snapchat, so people go there to groom them. But how do kids end up on Snapchat? How did Snapchat return as a platform? It was a thing of the past. It was a platform that has zero growth, that has been killed by Instagram, killed twice by WhatsApp, killed 3 times by TikTok. And now, as we've seen in your statistics, especially with people under 30, it's skyrocketing.
I have to say, I don't know really the details of why it went so that first it was up, hip and cool, and then it sort of died, and then now it's back. But I would speculate or assume that it's because of the instant messaging, like because it's developed for instant messaging, and youth seems to have this need to all the time be communicating with their friends. So because it's developed or designed for that specific purpose. And I think that most of us. I don't know how many of you, I don't know how many people here use Snapchat, but I don't use it. I'm too old, I guess, but still, yeah. But
I use it.
Okay, yes, but you're young at heart. But I don't know. Maybe you know better.
I use it with my kids, of
Exactly.
course.
Exactly. I'm sorry. I don't know. I think it's worth of more research, because it seems to be that there is this gap of understanding in why and for what reasons it's being used.
So my children are young adults, and they're using Snapchat quite regularly, and they have deleted TikTok and Instagram from their phones, specifically because they understand the addiction layer quite well because of their dad, I guess. But I didn't ask them to delete it. They just deleted it themselves, and they find Snapchat the most healthy way of communicating with their friends. So I think hopefully, like Snapchat in this regard, like is able to bring back a little bit of this actual healthy communication where you have friends and you are not trying to escape the friends to some content, but rather actually have a conversation with friends and coordinate, maybe getting together and and spending time with other people. That would be super healthy, and I would be applauding that.
I'll take the next question. And I don't know whom might be the best person to answer for that, but in the autumn we had Antti Karppinen here. He's a rewarded photographer who converted to a brilliant AI artist, and he was showing kind of things what can be done with mid-journeys and stable diffusions and you name it. I've been following him in LinkedIn, and he's kind of regularly showing that, hey, this was possible 2 months ago, and this is possible today. And there's like pretty amazing progress there. And he quite often puts there the question that if I can do this now with still pictures, when can I do this with videos? So how do you see, when will it be possible for any person having a computer to make believable videos? How far is that moment? Any guesses? Any knowledge?
No, if I refer to the NVIDIA's technology that they announced already more than a year ago, where you can basically create a deepfake of any video conference participant and render it on the other side, so that you don't even have to send the video image over the network. You can basically discuss with deepfakes. From my perspective, the technology is already here. You just simply put these talking faces. I mean, if you want to create movie-like scenes, that's a little bit more complicated thing to do. So I think it will take a little bit longer. But if you want to create some talking head out of anyone who is out there, who we have at least 30 seconds of speech available somewhere in the internet, I think we will see extremely high quality deepfakes coming out of those.
But I guess maybe you were talking about something more kind of not just standard deep fakes, but putting kind of artistic content into
all kinds of things. Mikko was showing the book that claimed is forecasting that by end of 25, 90% of web content on social media platforms would be generated by AI. Are we fooled, or will we be following, or do we feel that, okay, it's too much of artificial stuff, I quit using this platform?
Yeah. There's an artist called John Raffman who used this kind of early AI technology to create images, and he said that he saw it as a shame that there's this kind of increased realism in the images. And what he created 5 years ago, you could really kind of sort of see the model working, and it had its own aesthetic to it as well. So I think in some ways it's a bit simplistic if we evaluate the models just based on kind of realism and this kind of shiny aesthetics that Midjourney seems to have created. But maybe that's a bit of a digression. One thing that I think is interesting are there's these big lawsuits against OpenAI, the group behind Stable Diffusion and so forth. And it's not obvious that in the future you can just download a big crawl from the internet and kind of train your models on that. So it might be the kind of golden age of image creation that we're in some way.
Yeah, I guess technologically, I agree that a lot of the technology is here, and I think I showed this kind of what happened in how we went from pretty crude pictures in a year to quite photorealistic, and of course this is something a development that is continuing all the time. So technology-wise, we can do lots of things. Then there are all kinds of other topics, of course, then about the copyrights and so forth that might have an impact there. But then I think the big thing is that we don't really know the questions that you ask. Will people kind of embrace it, or will they turn away? Impossible to kind of forecast. So, and it might be that some people kind of find it fascinating. Some people go back to something else. It's that's the really interesting part in how people will react to these kind of new content coming out of these new opportunities.
Microsoft is launching this Copilot. Hands up who in their job is using Copilot in email or Teams or... Okay, third of the hands. I was kind of pondering and wondering that are we approaching a time that Mika sends me a mail and my Copilot reads that and kind of guesses what I might be answering, and initially shows me that I click, it goes to Mika. Mika's Copilot reads my mail, it's not my mail, but it's my Copilot's mail, and he's Copilot. So when are we in the moment when the Copilots start to just, with increasing speed, kind of filling our mailboxes, and where's the humanity? Hey, let's take a question or two still from the audience here. Sakari has a hand up here maybe first. So Sampo, if you pass the microphone. And the last thing I will do is that I will ask you to ask a question or two on the stage. Saku, please.
This is Sakari Kotola. I have a question. Where are we with AI and social influencing in 2030? So in about 5 years' time. Do we have enough regulation? Are we aware and critical enough? Or have we lost the game totally? I would like to hear 5 opinions from the stage.
You want to start, Pete?
From the stage.
I was kind of thinking, do I get the microphone? But then I got in 2030, exponential technology is there. We are running out of energy. We are running out of other things. I think the exponential growth will continue for a while, but there's some sort of limit we will hit there. So maybe we humans kind of start to riot against of these co-pilots and all this stuff that is. Maybe we start to decrease the amount of time, 4.5 hours, 5 hours on those platforms. Tough questions, but let's ask from the persons who are really researching the topic.
Essi, you wanna go?
No, you go.
Yeah, I've made some pretty bold predictions in the past. For example, that the first unicorn will be built in 1 week, which I made as a prediction in 2017, and it happened exactly when I predicted at the end of 2020. So if I look up and I take some of the current forecasts of people who we all know, Elon Musk has been predicting AGI in 6 years, which was much faster than I was predicting it back in the day. But he shortened it recently to 3 years. So now he's saying that it's going to happen in 3 years. I have some friends in AI space who are saying that we are having the proto AGI, which means that the AGI that will be low quality but will evolve into the full AGI this year. And there's many of them currently that are thinking that way. It looks like Sam Altman is currently implying in his conversations that some kind of proto-AGI already exists at the OpenAI offices. Of course, that's for the hype purposes. He's building up the valuation of the company, so we cannot know how good it is. But given all that, I think we are going to go through some pretty turbulent times in the next 5 years in terms of communication, where we are readjusting and adapting as societies. And my biggest fear right now regarding this is that we may lose a lot of the ground for the liberal democracies in the world, and we will have more dictatorships as the end result of this, including the risk that the United States kind of like goes more towards dictatorship type of government models. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and hopefully we find a way, but But for some reason, like the AI hasn't been helping us have more informed population, but it has had us a more misinformed population. And misinformed population does not vote according to their own interests, and then you'd lose the value of people, informed people, like voting for their own benefit. So yeah, that's my answer.
Thanks, Mikko. 3 more opinions or guesses.
So, I have a background in anthropology, and there's a joke about anthropologists that how many anthropologists does it take to change a light bulb? And the answer is, it depends on the context. So I'm not really trained to make very kind of bold, long-term statements in a way. But I think I share kind of Mikko's concern about the kind of cynicism about the future of our liberal democracy. But I feel like a lot of the problems come from not from the kind of sphere of technology and AI necessarily, but there's a lot of kind of problems related to established interests in institutions, and that's where I would want to kind of tackle and make changes to improve the future. I mean, to just give one anecdote, even in this country, we don't have proper transparency about who funds political campaigns, even today.
I guess this predicting the future is always a tricky thing. You can never go really kind of right there. I have a couple of things in. I mean, of course, all the concerns I think are very valid. And as for AGI, I won't even go there because the forecasts are, 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, never. Take your pick. But one thing that I would like to kind of at least comment is that we see a lot of threats around AI. So AI kind of doing this and doing that, but it also gives us a lot of opportunities. And I think kind of having the mindset of using AI to kind of actually solve the problems and not only create the problems, I think this is something that is also kind of would be a good starting point. And of course, there's a lot of risk. I think we're all kind of looking very hard on all kinds of elections going on now. But then I also think that looking at the younger generations who have actually grown with all of this, they also, I hope at least, have this kind of inbuilt kind of understanding also on that everything in the internet is not true and so forth. So hopefully there, I mean, first of all, kind of the general awareness, but then also kind of the capabilities we can build using AI or something else will also help us kind of solve the problems, highlight the questions. So I don't see this all as doom and gloom.
So my prediction would be then that also in 2030, linear TV and Facebook still exist. And that makes the consequence of that is that we will have a population that will be more diverse in sense of what kind of media they consume and how are they influenced. So that I would assume will create problems in terms of who knows what and on what terms, because people are we less and less live in a society where everybody shares the same truth. So whether it's a good or bad thing, but that would be my prediction. Yeah.
Any of you have a question to some other person on the stage?
There was one question over there.
Oh, sorry, that's another one, yes, still.
Seppo Kuusin Fundis application. I'm just curious about the current language models and especially chatgpt, as of course it's been already built and it's based on a huge amount of historical data, and of course that data is very much sort of based on stereotypes, and then when you use that to create new data, that just enhances the situation. So I'm just thinking like this sort of, how do we get rid of the bias, and how do we bring in the regulations and the fairness that was mentioned in one of the presentations, because it seems that the ship has already sailed. And of course, if you start manipulating the data and bringing in sort of quotas or whatever you want, it's again, it seems a bit dangerous if you start sort of tweaking it and basically sort of messing around with it. So I'm just curious to sort of, how do we fix that, something that is already there and it already sort of exists?
I guess with algorithms, you're always tweaking things and so forth. But really, I think the number one thing is being aware of the problem. So really kind of looking at the results from that eye. What you can do about this, it is really doing the kind of feedback loops back to the algorithm, essentially saying this is kind of, we don't, less of this, more of that. I think there are, if you follow the kind of ChatGPT discussion, you see early examples of ChatGPT exactly generating kind of racist jokes and so forth some years ago. And of course, the fine-tuning of the algorithm is what weeds those phenomena out. But you can only do it if you kind of understand that this is something that needs doing. And the same thing kind of for maybe more general in this fairness discussion. So it's all about really kind of, as I was saying, you can define fairness in very different ways. And they might be mutually contradictory. So you need to kind of think about what in your context is fair and what is not fair, and how is fairness divided there, and then monitor it. Is this kind of what is going on? I mean, this is the human in the loop that needs to keep this somehow in. And of course, you can also put AI in the loop, but somewhere you need to kind of make sure that things are kind of going the way that was intended.
I had a quick thing about open source models versus these big models. So there's actually now a group of AI folks who are installing open source models on their computers for the fact that they are not censored. Because there's so much censorship currently added already on the ChatGPT and everything else that you cannot get anymore a fully unbiased view of how the world currently is. So even though you say that it's the world is biased, but there are a lot of people who want to see how biased the world is. Like they want to understand like how the world actually currently works, and not the version that somebody filtered for you based on their own like choices. That's also why Elon Musk is building his own model, because he wants to have his own biases built into an AI model. So this kind of environment, it's really rapidly evolving, and it's very interesting how it will go, especially when vast majority of the future models will be educated with synthetic data rather than the actual human-generated data. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating times.
Okay, and the last question we'll take from the stage. Who has the question for the others?
For the other group members here, or for the audience?
Shoot, Mikko. Let's see who has the best answer for it. For the others in the stage, we have the microphones.
So when do you think AI will replace your work?
I missed the last word. When AI will
replace
your work.
My job.
In a few years, I guess.
A response to that one, I'm not sure if you remember, we met 5-6 years ago. I'm Verena, also known as the Chocolate Angel.
Yep.
And I asked you if and when AI will replace my job. Do you remember what you answered?
I don't remember my exact answer at the time. No.
I think you said something along the lines, it is just a matter of time. And trust me, I know my job will not be replaced by AI.
And I think that's a good remark to close the day. It is 2 hours have flown by. Thanks for the folks on the line, and big thanks for you in the room here. But biggest thanks for our four marvelous experts and visionaries on the stage. Thank you.